Welcome to the Power of Yes with Coach Servola, and this season is all about courage. Yes, but listen, not the kind that looks boldly on the outside, but the kind that is quiet on the inside. You know, the one that really shows up when you're standing at a crossroads and you start to recognize that something has to change. And you know this because you feel this feeling like in the pit of your stomach, or this weight that's like in your chest that says, I've got to do something different. I've got to shift. I've got to do things in a different way. Because the truth is, folks, that most of us, the moments that shape our lives don't really come from the fireworks or this high sense of certainty. They actually come from tension. Yes, tension with hesitation, with a choice really between what feels comfortable and what feels aligned. I want you to think about that for a moment. What is feeling comfortable and what is feeling aligned for you? Now, today, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that moment. That moment where comfort feels safe, but courage is calling you. Courage is calling you forward. If you've been sitting on a decision, if you've been delaying a move, if you've been telling yourself that not yet, this conversation is for you. Have you ever noticed how the hardest decisions don't announce themselves? They don't come with alarms or deadlines. They show up quietly in the moments when everything technically is working, but something inside you really starts to feel off, and that's usually where courage starts talking to you. And if you're anything like me, you also know where comfort starts to speak up right behind it. You get this sneaky suspicion that that's maybe not me being courageous, but maybe it's me feeling a little comfort and sticking into my comfort zone. Because comfort doesn't sound lazy, right? It sounds responsible. It sounds patient. It sounds like just wait a little bit longer. Have you ever said that to yourself? I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. And you know, most of us don't stay stuck because we don't know what to do, right? Many of us, we stay stuck because staying feels familiar. And familiarity can feel like safety even when it's slowly draining you. So you can be grateful and still outgrow a season. You know that, right? You can be capable and still feel misaligned. You can be doing good and still be resisting your next best step. And so if this is you right now, I want you to know that you are not you're not broken. You're becoming aware. And awareness is usually uncomfortable before it's actually freeing. You know, I think about the golden handcuffs. I was reading this Bible study some time ago, and when I first started my business, and it talked about the golden handcuffs. The golden handcuffs, beautiful. They're like, oh my God, you're looking at the handcuffs and you're thinking, oh my God, these are so gorgeous. These are so beautiful. And for me, mine would probably be gold with some rhinestones, not rhinestones, with diamonds, baby, with diamonds on them. But the key thing is they look beautiful, but they're still not free, right? When you have on those golden rusted handcuffs, you're still, and so you still this thing holding you and keeping you from the next moments. Comfort may seem beautiful, but it's not freeing, and it really is uncomfortable to get free from the comfort zone that many of us find ourselves in. And there's a moment that comes when comfort stops feeling peaceful and it really starts to feel really heavy. Starts to feel really heavy. And when the thing that you've once prayed for begins to ask you a different question. And for me, that moment came when I realized that I was managing my life instead of leading it. Simply put, managing instead of leading. Nothing was really falling apart. Nothing was wrong at the moment, but something wasn't right, and I can feel it. And in that moment, fear wasn't loud. It was speaking to me softly. It was subtle. It was negotiating with me, even if I were to say that. I was in that what if zone. And the negative side, right? The negative side of the what if zone. What if I mess this up? What if I lose what I've built? What if I'm wrong? And I had to sit with that. And as I say, let it flow through me. Because there was another question that really kept interrupting all of those thoughts or stinking thinking. Is what if staying is actually the risk? What if staying is actually the risk? And that's when I had to be honest with myself. Fear wasn't protecting me. It was cluttering my thinking. And that's what I mean in Dump the Junk when I talk about how fear doesn't just live in your emotions, it actually lives in your assumptions, the things that you're assuming in your mind. Your delays, your overthinking, it fills the space that's meant for clarity. And here is what really changed for me is that I had to stop waiting for courage to arrive. And I had to start learning how to move with the fear and still be present. Because courage isn't a personality trait. It is a practice. It's a practice. And over time, I noticed that every brave decision that I made followed that same internal conversation. First, listen, I had to name the fear, not fight it, not justify it, just say, this scares me. It's terrifying. And as I began to realize that, I also had to own what I already knew, the truth that kept circling around, but avoiding, right? And that truth was that I know this season is ending. And I also know that I'm being pulled forward into something that maybe I'm not really sure about, maybe I'm pretty uncertain about. And then after that, I had to get honest about the cost of staying. And I know many of you thinking, the cost of staying? What do you mean the cost of staying? Because many times we imagine the cost of leaving, right? But the real cost of staying was costing me energy. It was costing me alignment. It was costing me momentum. And then after that, I realized I needed to start taking small steps towards where I knew that I was being called to. And as I started taking those small steps, I started recognizing, listen, I don't need the whole plan. I just need that next step. Where does that next step is it going to take me? Because in the moment, I felt completely overwhelmed by all of the things. And somewhere in that process, I stopped doing it by myself. And I had to let someone walk with me. And listen, I even do this today. Just a few days ago, my husband and I, we have these intimate moments where we lay in the bed and if we get a good quiet morning, where I don't have to rush off to work or to be with a client, early meetings or anything like that, we just take this time and we lay in our beds and in our bed and we cuddle up underneath each other and we just have these talks. And I was having one of these talks with my husband, and I was sharing with him. I was like, babe, I feel so overwhelmed. I feel like, what if this doesn't pan out? What if this doesn't work? What if I can't achieve this? What if I don't get to this place? I feel so much pressure to achieve this mark. And my husband, because of my vulnerability, right? Because I was willing to open up and just share where I was at that moment, he was able to basically rewrite the story that fear was writing in my heart. Because fear's going to try to write a story, right? And we need to understand that we're not walking this alone, that we need to allow people to help us to turn down the noise and to stop fear from writing the story, or I should say stop fear from rewriting the story of our lives. And he began to say to me, babe, okay, what is the worst that could happen? And I was like, oh man, that we had to start over and all these things. And, we just walked that journey. But I tell you what, at the end of that conversation, he helped me to get back into the space of my purpose, of alignment, have that drive, that momentum. And so when I had that moment to lean in and to get that support from him, then I was able to go face the day and even the challenges of the day in a different way. And so we need people in our lives to remind us who we are when fear tries to rewrite the story of who we are. I learned to release the outcome. In that conversation with him, I was really concerned about the outcome. And a lot of times we do all the right things, but we don't have control over when we're going to get those results. Listen, friends, you don't have control over the end results. And so you're not giving up the work that you're supposed to do. You do need to release that control. You do need to let go of controlling it, because you can't control the outcome. You can't control the outcome. That's not yours to control. And that's the rhythm. Naming the fear, owning the truth, counting the real cost of staying, taking one step, asking for support, strengthening, and strengthening myself by remembering that I need to surrender the outcome, and continuing anyways with those small, courageous steps. And that's what I now call courage. Not something that you wait for, but something that you actually put into practice. And the more you practice it, the quieter the fear gets. And, and there's a scripture that grounds me even when I start feeling this way. It's in 2 Timothy, the 1st chapter and the 17th verse, I believe. And that scripture is that God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I have used this scripture as my anchor many times in my life. And I remember a moment when George and I had just gotten married. It wasn't right after we got married, but maybe a few months in, or maybe a year or so in. I was traveling. I was a gospel recording artist at the time. I was still working full time. I was a mom of 3 instead of a mom of 1. I was a wife. I was still active in my church. I think you're starting to get the crazy. And for those of you who know this, that this is a busy life, and this is where we are as women. We do a lot of things, and not just us as women, just people. And so I was in this space and I was doing all the things, and I was going through all the motions to show up, and I wanted to show up as this woman who could take care of everything and who can do all the things. But in the inside, there was so much that was building up inside of me, so many expectations that I felt that I wasn't able to meet. I had the expectations of my husband. I had the expectations of my children. I had the expectations of the invisible expectations of just life even. And I started feeling overwhelmed. And I remember we were I don't remember where we were, but we were on a trip and I was just like like about to lose it. I think I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And I remembered having this moment where I just sat and this scripture came to me that God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And I kept repeating that scripture over and over and over and just letting it come forward. And I kept saying to myself, I have a sound mind. God has not given me the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And that scripture began to anchor me. It began to help me to recognize that I'm not losing it. I have a sound mind. I am loved by God, and I have the power to be able to push through this. But one of the things I had to realize is I had to be transparent about where I was. I had to be clear about the expectations that were being placed on me and where those responsibilities really lied. And I could not control the outcomes of what everybody was expecting. And I think that a lot of times we put ourselves in tough situations when we don't come to terms with that. That verse right there doesn't say that fear won't show up. It reminds us, who's not supposed to be leading when fear shows up, right? Who's not supposed to be in the driver's seat when fear shows up. Because I don't know about you, I'm a person, I don't really like roller coasters. I don't get on them. I don't ride them. I don't know. You can be different, but that's not my thing. And because I know I'll be terrified on those things. And honestly, I feel like fear would be in the driver's seat. So when I think of fear being in the driver's seat, I think of a roller coaster ride. And life within itself can already be a roller coaster, but why would I want to have fear leading me through that roller coaster? So if something in you feels stirred right now, I want you to do something simple a little bit later. You don't have to do it right now. You can do it later. But right now, I do want you to grab a pen and I want you to grab a pad, because there are some things that I want you to write down to do later. And really take some time to reflect. When you get into that quiet place, I want you to take some time to reflect upon these things and write them down, and just let them really sink into you. The yes that I keep postponing is, write that down. The fear attached to that yes is, the smallest step that I'm willing to take is. And that's it. Nothing overwhelming, nothing overthinking. I don't want you to overthink it. Listen, clarity will come after movement, but not before it. So if you're tired of holding on to these conversations all alone in your head, this is why I've created the Yes Living community. It's really exists not for perfect people, but for people who are willing to move forward honestly and together. And coming up in our next episode, you are going to hear from a dear friend of mine, Sammy Heyman Marrero. And she is someone who said yes to uncertainty by leaning fully into who she is before the path was ever clear. And I think that her story will meet you exactly where you are. I am so excited to be bringing her on next. Listen, I'm Coach Servola, and this is the power of yes. Comfort always offers you a reason to stay, but courage invites you forward. So the question is, are you ready to say yes right now?